everyone, this is your educator Priyanka Thakur teaching you life sciences and welcome you all on our YouTube channel Gurmantra Shikshaka Granth. So today in this video we are going to study about biological nitrogen fixation. In previous video I told you about nitrogen cycle, and along with that I also told you about its assimilation. In this we are going to talk about mainly about the nitrogen fixation in the leguminous plants. Okay, we will be knowing this thing in detail. In fact, after watching this video, if you're reading your reference book like Tays and Zeiger Plant Physiology, it will become very easy for you to understand that particular book after watching this video. Okay, even if you want to read the pathfinder, you can. Okay, let's start with our today's topic, which is biological nitrogen fixation. So we know that what is biological fixation. What exactly is fixation? And most of I'm sorry if you're getting any kind of disturbances from my side, like there are some kids who are shouting so loudly. In fact, I can't ask them to shut their mouth, but if you are hearing any kind of other sounds other than mine, then please apologize. I apologize. Okay, so biological nitrogen fixation accounts for most of the fixation of atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia. Okay, and this is the entry point of molecular nitrogen into the biogeochemical cycles of nitrogen. What is exactly is nitrogen fixation? It is the conversion of molecular nitrogen into the ammonia, and here it will be a productive biosynthetic process. Remember, biological nitrogen fixation is a reductive biosynthetic process, and it can be performed by nitrogen fixing bacteria or diazotropes. Okay, eukaryotes cannot fix atmospheric nitrogen. Fine. Okay, during this biological nitrogen fixation, at least 1 mole of hydrogen and 2 moles of ammonia are generated for each molecule of nitrogen. Remember, for 1 molecule of nitrogen, 1 mole of hydrogen and 2 moles of ammonia are generated. Whenever you are studying anything, preparing for any kind of examination, keep one thing in your mind. Read each and every line just like an MCQ. Read like, oh, this could be asked by the examiner, so I should be memorizing it and understanding it in a very well way. Okay, so for 1 molecule of nitrogen, there is the generation of 1 mole of hydrogen and 2 moles of ammonia. As it is a reductive process, okay, there will be the requirement of electron. There is the requirement of at least 8 electrons for the reduction of 1 mole of nitrogen to form 2 moles of ammonia. If there is no formation of hydrogen along with it, okay, as we know that there will be the formation of 1 mole of hydrogen as well, but if this 1 mole of hydrogen is not forming, then there is the requirement of only 6 electrons. Remember this thing also. Fine. Let's know about nitrogenase complex. Nitrogenase complex is the important one which is going to fix the nitrogen. Okay, so biological process of nitrogen is catalyzed by a nitrogenase complex. Nitrogenase complex fix the this biological process. Nitrogenase activity requires cofactor like molybdenum, vanadium, and iron. There are actually 3 different types of nitrogenase complexes which will differ in their cofactor requirement. That's like some will be requiring molybdenum, some will be requiring molybdenum and iron, and other will be like vanadium and iron. Okay, so nitrogenase complex, as the name suggests, it is a complex. So it consists of at least 2 proteins. One is dinitrogenase reductase, other one is dinitrogenase. So dinitrogenase reductase is actually also known as iron protein because it is a dimer which is bridged by 4 iron 4 sulfur cluster. And dinitrogen is a tetramer. It will have 2 different subunit and 2 copies of each subunit. So 1 copy of each subunit, like 2 copies of each subunit means 2 subunits, then 4 copies. So dinitrogenase is a tetramer with two copies of two different subunits. It contains both molybdenum and iron, therefore it is also known as molybdenum iron protein. And this molybdenum iron, this is the site of nitrogen fixation. So now you understand that nitrogenase complex is having two protein. One is dinitrogenase reductase, also known as iron protein, and it is a dimer which is bridged by iron and sulfur clusters, while dinitrogenase is a tetramer, and it is having both iron and molybdenum, so it is also known as molybdenum iron protein and is the main cofactor and main site of nitrogen fixation. So the activity and synthesis of this nitrogenase, the catalytic activity and the synthesis of this nitrogenase is under the control of NIF genes, but this the regulation of activity of this nitrogenase in aerobic nitrogen fixers is under the control of genes called fix genes. Okay, main genes are NIF genes, but if you are talking about aerobic nitrogen fixers, so in those fixers the nitrogenase activity will be regulated by fix genes. So this is a reductive process. There must be some electron donor. We know that 8 electrons are produced for the fixing of one molecule of nitrogen and the production of 2 ammonia and 1 mole of hydrogen. Okay, and the number of electron is 6 when no hydrogen is produced. But during the reductive process, an electron donor, see, during the reductive process an electron donor is required. So in this case the electron donor is reduced ferredoxin, which is having an iron sulfur group, and it plays an important role during the reduction of nitrogen into the ammonia. So 6 ATPs are required for the reduction of one molecule of nitrogen. For one molecule of nitrogen, there is the requirement of 16 ATP. If I am saying 2 molecules of nitrogen, there will be the formation of 4 ammonia and the requirement of ATPs will be 32. You understand? Okay. So this is a nitrogenase enzyme complex. Watch it carefully. This is your dinitrogenase reductase. This is your dinitrogenase. Clear? See, this is the ferredoxin, which is reduced ferredoxin will be acting as an electron donor after it donated its electron to the iron protein, which is the dinitrogenase reductase. It will be oxidized, and the oxidized iron of iron protein will be then reduced. This then reduce the molybdenum oxidized molybdenum iron of molybdenum iron protein, and ultimately there will be the reduction of nitrogen into one nitrogen molecule into 2 ammonia along with the release of hydrogen. Okay, but one thing you should remember, the molybdenum iron protein, it is inactivated by oxygen, and the half decay time in air is about 10 minutes. Remember this thing, that molybdenum iron protein can be inactivated by the oxygen. If this protein is unable to perform its function, there will not be any fixing of nitrogen into the ammonia. Remember this point? You will understand many points in the next slides if you are remembering this point. Okay, see, now let's talk about some free living and symbiotic bacteria fixing nitrogen. Okay, see, these are symbiotic nitrogen fixation bacteria. In leguminous plants like legumes, parasponia, Rhizobium species will be responsible for the fixation of nitrogen. Frankia, which is an actinomycetes, it will be fixing nitrogen in alder, Ceanothus, Castorina and Datisca. Okay, Gunera possess stem glands. Okay, in Gunera, the nitrogen fixing bacteria will be actually a cyanobacteria nostoc. In water fern, Ajola, Anavina act as a symbiont. In sugarcane, Acetobacter is a symbiont which will be fixing the nitrogen for sugarcane. So these all are the symbiotic nitrogen fixation examples. Okay, free living nitrogen fixation. Cyanobacteria can act as a symbiont and can also fix nitrogen in free living state. And why? You will get to know this thing in the later section. Okay, cyanobacteria, well, let me tell you, due to the formation of heterocyst. Okay, cyanobacteria, Anabina, Calothrix, nostoc, they can fix nitrogen even in their free state. Aerobic bacteria, like Azospirillum, Azotobacter, Wisnickia, Deutzia, facultative arrow, Bacillus, Klapsilla. These are also free-living nitrogen fixers. Then anaerobic, non-photosynthetic means these are actually chemotropes. Clostridium, Methanococcus, this is Archibacterium. Okay, Methanococcus is an Archibacterium. Photosynthetic include Chromacium, Rhodospirillum. So the examiner can ask you that which one of the following is actually the aerobic free-living nitrogen fixing bacteria. So what should you be answering? You should be answering either Azospirillum, Azotobacter, Wisnickia or Deutzia. Remember all these things. Okay, they can ask you like anything. Okay, they can ask you which either Nostoc or Anavina, which is acting as a symbiont with Azolla. So most of the time we get confused with Nostoc and Anavina. So do remember Anavina is the main one. Okay. Okay, let's move to our next section. So we know that most of the these nitrogen fixing prokaryotes are free living in the soil. Okay, but a few form symbiotic association with higher plants, and in this symbiotic association with higher plants, prokaryotes, what they are going to provide? They are going to provide the host plant with fixed nitrogen, and they will be getting nutrients and carbohydrates in exchange of the fixed nitrogen. So remember, symbiotic bacteria will be providing fixed nitrogen to the host plant, and in exchange they will get nutrients and carbohydrates from the host plant. So symbiotic nitrogen fixing prokaryotes may not form nodules, but most of the times we see nodule formation. Okay, and these nodules may be formed in the roots. Okay, most of the time they are formed on the roots of leguminous plants, but they may also be formed on the stem of these leguminous plant, like Sesbania is a leguminous plant, and nodules are formed on the stem of this plant. Okay, most of the time the nodules are formed on the roots, but in Sesbania the nodules are formed on stem. Nodule formation may also takes place in the non-legumes. So not only in legumes, but nodule formation also takes place in non-legume. For example, Allis, Myrica, Casuarina. In previous slide, you got to know that Frankia is a symbiont for Casuarina, and it is also a symbiont for Allis and Myrica as well. So these are non-legume, and here the nitrogen fixing genera is Frankia, which is an actinomycetes. Remember, the symbiotic relationship is not obligatory. This Frankia rhizobium can live freely in the soil. Anabina, as I told you, lives in the pores on the fronds. Fronds are leaf-like structures, okay? Anabina lives in the pores on fronds of water fern called Azolla, but it doesn't form any nodules. So through this slide, we got to know that nodules may be formed and may not be formed. They can be formed on the stem or on the roots. They can be formed in the legumes as well as non-legumes. Okay. So next we are going to talk about that nitrogen fixation. It requires anaerobic conditions and not the aerobic one. I just told you in the previous section that oxygen can inactivate the nitrogenase enzyme, mainly the dinitrogenase protein of nitrogenase complex. Okay, so this oxygen irreversibly inactivate the nitrogenase. Okay, and this nitrogenase is involved in the nitrogen fixation. So nitrogen must be fixed under anaerobic conditions and not in the aerobic conditions. Now we know that in cyanobacteria can fix the nitrogen as symbiont or in its free living state. So in cyanobacteria, anaerobic conditions are created in the specialized cells, and these cells are called heterocysts. These heterocysts are actually thick-walled cells, and these heterocysts differentiate only when filamentous cyanobacteria are deprived of ammonium ions. Remember this thing also, that heterocysts will be differentiated in the filamentous cyanobacteria when they are deprived of ammonium ion. So heterocyst cells, they lack photosystem 2, and we know that photosystem 2 is the oxygen producing photosystem of chloroplast. If photosystem 2 is absent, then there will not be formation of oxygen and anaerobic conditions are created. That's why, and if nitrogenase is present there, it will be able to fix the atmospheric nitrogen into the available form of available form which are actually available for the plants. Okay, so we can say that heterocyst, it appears to represent an adaptation for nitrogen fixation, in that they are widespread among aerobic cyanobacteria that fix nitrogen. So heterocyst, the formation of heterocyst in the cyanobacteria is actually an adaptation for the fixing of nitrogen. So we can see a number of heterocyst formation in the aerobic bacteria, aerobic cyanobacteria, which are fixing nitrogen. Clear? Okay. So nodules are formed. Nodules are generally formed in what? They are mostly formed in the leguminous plants, in our non-legumes also. In nodules also, there will be what? There will be what? Like there will be anaerobic conditions. How? Nodules contain an oxygen binding heme protein which is known as like hemoglobin. So like hemoglobin is actually found in the cytoplasm of the infected nodule. Nodules are infected by the symbiont bacteria. We will know how these nodules will be formed, okay, but for now remember, like hemoglobin will be present in the nodules and it will be present in the cytoplasm of infected nodule, and if it is present in the higher concentration, it will give a pink color to the nodule. So this is a like hemoglobin. Globin portion of this like hemoglobin will be produced by the host plant in response to the infection by bacteria. When bacteria infect the host plant form the globin portion of hemoglobin, and the heme portion is produced by bacteria itself. Like hemoglobin has more affinity for oxygen as compared to human hemoglobin. Remember this thing, if you are having hemoglobin and if you are having like hemoglobin, oxygen and hemoglobin in the same culture, like hemoglobin affinity will be 10 times higher for oxygen as compared to human hemoglobin. Although like hemoglobin, it was thought that like hemoglobin act as a scavenger of oxygen and provide anaerobic condition for the fixation of nitrogen. It is one case. Okay, now it has also been shown that it can store enough oxygen to support nodule respiration for a few seconds. Okay, so this like hemoglobin not only provide an anaerobic condition for the nitrogen fixation, but it also stores enough oxygen to support nodule respiration for a few seconds. So it can support nodule respiration just for a few seconds. Okay, and there shouldn't be enough oxygen. The oxygen concentration should be as low as that it won't be able to inhibit it won't be able to inactivate our nitrogenase enzyme. Okay, but there should be a small amount which will be available for nodule respiration. Clear? And like hemoglobin is going to perform both the function. So like hemoglobin actually helped transport oxygen to the respiring symbiotic bacterial cells, okay, in manner analogous to hemoglobin transporting oxygen to respiring tissue in animals. Okay, so this like hemoglobin, it will be transporting oxygen to the respiring symbiotic bacterial cell as well. In what manner? In manner just analogous to the hemoglobin transporting oxygen to respiring tissue in animals. So I hope everything is clear to you now, and if you're having any doubt, do comment in the comment section. I will be resolving your doubt for sure. Okay, so let's talk about how the symbiosis will take place. Okay, establishing symbiosis, it will require exchange of signals. As I already told you that symbiosis between this rhizobium and legumes, it is not obligatory. Like legume seedlings, they can germinate without any association with rhizobium. They do not require any rhizobium. They can easily germinate and can remain associated throughout their life. Even rhizobium can live freely in the soil. But when nitrogen is limited, then both of these symbionts seek each other through an elaborate exchange of signals. Signals are sent by roots as well. Okay, the signaling, the subsequent infection process and the development of nitrogen fixing nodules involves specific genes in both the host and symbionts. So for this signaling, for the infection process and development of nitrogen fixing nodules, there is the requirement of some special genes in both host and symbionts. So both symbionts and host will have some specific genes which will be responsible for the signaling and the infectious process and then the development of nitrogen fixing nodules. In plant genes, these specific genes are called nodulin or nod genes. These are actually specific to nodules only. See, N is capital for nodulin genes. And the bacterial genes are actually known as nodulation genes, and here N is small. So take care while attempting such kind of question. If you have been asked about the plant genes which are specific to nodules, you should be writing N capital. Please take care of this thing by attempting such kind of question. And the genes are nodulin genes. In rhizobium, the genes are nodulation genes and N is small. So these genes can be classified as common. These are like nod genes, nodulation genes can be classified as common nod genes or host specific nod genes. Fine. So common nod genes include nod A, B, C, and these are found in all rhizobial strain. While host specific nod genes include P, Q, H and F, E, L, like nod P, nod Q, nod H, and F, E, L as well. These genes will differ among different rhizobial species and they will determine a host range. Okay, only one gene which is not mentioned here, regulatory nod gene. A regulatory nodulation gene is present in the bacteria which is having a constitutive expression, means it will be expressing itself continuously, and the product of this regulatory gene will be responsible for the transcription of all other nod genes. Remember this thing, that this regulatory nod gene will be constitutively expressing itself and the product of this gene will be responsible for the transcription of other nod gene. Okay, what is the first stage in the formation of symbiotic relationship? It is the migration of bacteria toward the roots of host plant, as root cannot migrate. No, if you want to talk to someone, if you want to have a conversation with someone, you have to go to that person. If both the person want to have a conversation, they will be coming toward each other. Okay, but when only one want, then one will be going to the other. But definitely here even plant want that conversation and bacteria also want, but difference is that roots cannot move. Okay, they cannot migrate. So there will be the migration of bacteria toward the roots of the host plant, and this migration will occur as a chemotactic response. Okay, this chemotactic response is mediated by some special chemical attractants known as flavonoids, betaines, and these flavonoids and betaines are secreted by roots. It means root secretes some flavonoids, some betaines, and as a chemotactic response, bacteria show migration toward the roots. Okay, so these attractants that are secreted by roots, they will activate the rhizobial nod D protein. Nod D protein. Ma'am, this is capital here. Okay, it's nod D protein and not gene, so it should be capital here. Nodulation D proteins will be activated after the interaction of rhizobium with these attractants. Okay, and they will induce the transcription of other nod genes. So nod D proteins means these are the product of regulatory nodulation genes. These proteins will get activated and they will induce the transcription of all other nod genes. Okay, so mainly how this happen actually, all these nod genes consist of nod operon in their promoter region, but not the nodulation D protein. Nodulation D protein does not, okay, it also possesses a nod operon, but all other nod genes operon consist of a conserved sequence known as nod box, not the nodulation D protein. Nodulation D gene does not have this nod box. So this nod D, the activated nod D binds to the nod box and then induce the transcription of other nod genes. Okay, so nod D protein will bind to the nod box of all other nod genes and then will induce the transcription of other nod genes. And these nod genes will produce some nod factors which will be responsible for the formation of infectious thread, and then a nodule formation. So, three of NOD genes, NOD A, B, C, encode enzymes which are required for the synthesizing of the basic structure. They will be forming the basic structure of nodule. Okay. And see, NOD factors are lipoketoligosaccharides. NOD factors are lipoketoligosaccharides, means these are chitin derivatives. And in rhizobium, these NOD factors are composed of beta 1,4, not 1,1. It's wrong here. Beta 1,4 linked N-acetyl D-glucosamine. Remember this thing as well. And NOD A is the product of NOD A gene. NOD B is the product of NOD B genes. These are not the genes of, these are not nodulin genes now. You can get confused with the nodulin genes and nodulation proteins. Okay. Nodulin genes are also written like this, but these are nodulation proteins. Nodulation A's product will be nodulation A protein, actually enzyme. So NOD A is an N-acetyl transferase enzyme. It is an N-acetyl transferase, so it will be catalyzing the addition of a fatty acyl chain. And NOD B is a chitin oligosaccharide deacetylase, and it will be involved in the removal of an acetyl group from the terminal non-reducing sugar. So NOD B, which is a chitin oligosaccharide deacetylase, will result in the removal of, will be involved in the removal of acetyl group from where? From the terminal non-reducing sugar. NOD C, it actually acts as a synthase, chitin oligosaccharide synthase, which link N-acetyl D-glucosamine monomers, and then NOD factors will be formed. So NOD factors are lipoketoligosaccharides, which will be formed by this NOD A, B, and C. NOD E, F, L, which are actually host specific, will also be performing some functions. Like NOD E and F will determine the length of this fatty acyl chain. Along with this, they also determine the degree of saturation of fatty acyl chain. NOD L, they actually influence the specificity of NOD factors for their host. How? These NOD L, they can substitute the non-reducing sugar or reducing sugar moieties of chitin backbone. They add some specific substitution for these moieties on chitin backbone, and these specific substitution then change the host specificity of NOD factors. So NOD L thus can influence the host specificity of NOD factors. Okay. Now we come to know about NOD genes and how they are going to perform their role. So these NOD factors, which are which are lipoketoligosaccharides, formed due to the action of these respective proteins or enzymes, I can say. These NOD factors will induce root hair curling, and then they trigger plant cell division. Okay. During this curling will result in formation of a small compartment, and rhizobium become enclosed in that small compartment formed by the curling. The cell wall of root hair is then degraded in these regions and also in response to the NOD factors, and allow the bacterial cells to direct access to outer surface of plant plasma membrane. It means that now cell wall has been degraded and bacterial cell can have the direct access to the outer surface of plasma membrane. And then the plasma membrane fuses with the bacterial cell, and then there is the formation of infectious thread. And this infectious thread is actually an internal tubular extension of plasma membrane, which is produced by fusion of Golgi derived membrane vesicles at the site of infections. Okay, so infection thread will form by the fusion of Golgi derived membrane vesicles. Fine. The thread grows at its tip by the fusion of secretory vesicles to the end of the tube. Okay. So this infectious thread go deeper into the cortex and then when this infectious thread reaches the cortex, cortical cells which are already differentiated become de-differentiated. After the cells become de-differentiated, they will start dividing. We know that differentiated cells are those which have been lost their ability to divide, and differentiated cells are those which have the ability to divide. So they will start dividing, forming a distinct area within the cortex called a nodule primordium, from which the nodule will develop. Nodule primordia form opposite the protoxylem poles of the root vascular bundle. Remember this thing? Nodule primordia will be formed opposite the protoxylem poles of the root vascular bundle. Okay. So now nodule primordium has been formed. Uridine will diffuse into the cortex and will stimulate the division of this nodule primordia. And this division, when the nodule has been formed perfectly, this will be blocked by ethylene. This ethylene is produced in the pericycle. Okay, it has been produced in the pericycle, but it diffused to the cortex as well. Now, the infected cell rhizobium will also divide, and they will enlarge to form the bacteroid. These bacteroid are separated from the cytosol by a bacteroid membrane, and this membrane is also known as bacteroid membrane. Let's check it out here. These are the rhizobia, which will show a chemotactic response for the flavonoids and betaines secreted by the roots. They will now cause the curling of root here, okay, and then they will enter the root through the infectious thread, and the Golgi vesicle will be fusing. Okay, we know that Golgi vesicle fuses and result in the formation of this infectious in its tubular extension. Okay, then infectious thread membrane fuses with a cell membrane, and finally this reaches in the cortical region. Okay, and then the cortical cell divides, and rhizobium also divides and form a bacteroid, which will be separated from the membrane by the peribacteroid membrane. Bacteria consist of nitrogenase, which will be responsible for the fixing of nitrogen, and no oxygen is required. That's why there will be like hemoglobin produced by what? The like hemoglobin will be produced by a globin part by the cytoplasm of the cell and host plant cell, and heme part will be formed by what? Bacteria. And this leg of hemoglobin is present in the cytoplasm of host plant nodule cells, and it will be scavenging the oxygen, but at the same time it will also be providing oxygen just for a few seconds for the nodules and for bacteria, if the bacteria is aerobic as well. Okay, anaerobic bacteria does not require any special conditions. These special structures are not required when the nitrogen fixing bacteria are anaerobes. Okay, so such kind of nodules are formed, and after this, you also know nitrogen will be fixed. It will be provided to plants, and then it will be provided to plants in amide form or ureide forms. Ultimately, ureides again are converted into the amides. We know that ammonia is immediately converted into what? Ammonium ions are immediately converted into amino acids. Amides are what? Amino acids. So nitrogen fixing legumes can be divided into amide exporters or ureide exporters on the basis of composition of the xylem sap. If the xylem sap is containing amide or ureide. So amide includes amino acids such as asparagine or glutamine mainly, and they are exported by temperate region legumes. So means those legumes which are which are growing in the temperate region will be exporting this nitrogen in the form of amides like amino acid, asparagine and glutamine. For example, pea, pisum, clover, trifolium, broad bean, vicia and lentil lens. While the legumes which are growing in the tropical regions, they will be exporting ureides such as soybean, glycine, kidney phaseolus, peanut, arachis and southern pea, vigna. And there are three different types of ureides: allantoin, allantoic acid and citrulline. This allantoin is produced in the peroxisome from uric acid. Allantoic acid is synthesized from Electron in endoplasmic reticulum, and we are not certain about the synthesis of citrulline. So all these compounds will ultimately be released into the xylem and then are transported to the shoot, where they again are catabolized to ammonium. Okay, fine. So finally, you know each and everything about nitrogen cycle, and you know how ammonium ion are further converted into these amides, and then amides, these asparagine glutamine will result in the formation of other amino acids. That's all about nitrogen cycle. I hope everything is clear to you. Know if there is anything which isn't clear to you, you can ask me in the comment section. I will be answering your each and every question before hitting the dislike button unnecessarily. Okay, do let me know where you are not understanding the concept. Okay, but before leaving this video, I want to tell you, you can join Unacademy. You can take the subscription of Unacademy to prepare for your CSIR NET JRF June 2021. And here is the details of paid classes, how much you need to pay. But definitely do not forget to use the referral code NEHA, which is the referral code of our dear ma'am Neha Taneja. So Neha you can use to get the 10% off on this fee. Okay, so in fact, along with this, do not forget to press the bell icon. But first hit the subscribe button and then press the bell icon. Join us whenever you want. Check out the description box. You will get the links for different platforms of Gurmantra. That's all for